I want to share these things that I think can help a lot of individuals, because I see it with my students, I see it with people in my life, that there's a certain kind of brokenness in society that we've all sort of accepted since we have this mass interconnectedness through the mechanism of our cell phones and devices and tablets and TV and all of these different things. And we have to understand that there is a certain type of brainwashing, and I don't know that that it's totally methodical. Like I'm not really into conspiracy theories, because again, I think even if there is a conspiracy, that if you go down the rabbit hole of believing in that conspiracy or getting too hyper invested in it, you're just going to do a disservice to yourself anyways, and you're going to be residing in a fearful energy or an energy of an ideology that some other force is in control of you, and that's not healthy, that's not good. So you want to always understand the world, or have a conception of the world that you are a sovereign being. You are autonomous, you have your own thoughts, you are in control of your own thoughts, and then with that power that you hold, that sovereignty that you hold, you make sure that you're really on the ball with how you are thinking your thoughts. Thoughts are the most powerful force we have, because they literally are the backbone, the infrastructure to everything we see in our lives. So what we think is what is going to out-manifest. So we need to be the most diligent with our thought forms. Again, the way that our thoughts calibrate and the things that we think about correlate to the actions we take. Now, if we're sitting there scrolling, looking at bullshit all day long, we are gonna be wasting a lot of our good, valuable time. A lot of that stuff is very surface level. So there is some intelligence in some of the posts, okay? So there's a little bit of stuff that if you are following the right platforms, there can be sort of some quick wisdom or intelligence that can be eye-opening, but you have to have balance in that, okay? If you take 5 minutes a couple times a day and sort of look at that inspiration, and that's good for you, that's great. Maybe that reacclimates your mental patterning or whatever train of thought you're on into a more balanced, happy place, okay? But if you are utilizing a little screen to suck your mind into it, whether it's video games, whatever it is, like where it's taking your consciousness away from progression and development in a sense that is really going to make you a better version of yourself, then it is absolutely not good for you. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the real opposite end of the spectrum, because there is some really creepy stuff that is on social media. A couple times, some of it has come on my feed. I am really diligent to get rid of it quickly, because it's so deranged, I can see how a mind would want to click into it or sort of go down the rabbit hole of any of these darker manifestations or creations. However, you have to be really careful, because if you start learning about these things, it's still planting a seed in your mind. It's still giving your mind the ability to think in that direction. And I'm always very careful to gate up or barricade what will be allowed into my garden, okay? It has to be very innocent, very pure, very forward-thinking, things that can help others, things. So when we think about this in terms of our mental health, mental illness, anxiety, depression, OCD, just some of the different, disorders that people may be interested about dealing with, all of these different things, I'm of the mindset that every mind is different, that there's a spectrum, that anytime our thoughts get a little bit distorted, we can rein them in. There's, certain aspects of obsessive thinking or certain types of thought forms that certainly can have an unhealthy outpost, so to say. But again, this is part of the practice of diligence to our thought forms. You have to, and I don't know why this is not taught in schools, you have to find a way or have a way of recalibrating your thoughts and going back into peace, okay? Meditation is amazing for this. So deep breathing, that mechanism where we are taking, a full deep breath, holding it, letting it out, just allowing our thoughts to flow like waves, not paying too much attention to them, not being swept away by them, just allowing them to exist. Quieting the mind. I love using different frequency tones and just letting the vibration of those frequencies calm the way that my mind is spinning, okay? If you have music that doesn't have any words per se, it is, and if it's beautiful, if it's very soft, kind of angelic or meditative music, it is going to calm your aura. Now, another thing that you can do in terms of programming or helping with your mental health is subliminals. So to tap into the subconscious mind, which is running most of our programming, you can utilize subliminals that are hidden underneath different tones. Hopefully, you know that the subliminals are good. That's the other thing about it. You never know, right? But hopefully what you're listening to is all good programming. The words are kind and good, and that's something that even myself, I'm almost self-motivated to make my own subliminals so that I know what's going, into the background. That may be a project I undertake, in due time. But again, this idea of subliminals and us integrating messages into our subconscious can be super helpful. When we deal with fear and anxiety, again, it's the words and the repetition that create a strong infrastructure for the mind. So the way that the brain works is when we think a thought and there's this charge between the synapses in the brain and this information is exchanged, the more frequently we think of that thought, the closer those synapses move together and the interconnection between them. So the frequency at which that thought will be rethought by you, your internal programming, is due to the frequency that you're thinking those thoughts. So that's why, again, with any kind of device, if you're looking at something or scrolling and seeing the same information over and over and over, especially if it's really, really superficial or hypersexualized or really dark or scary or macabre or whatever it is, you are going to train yourself in that way, and you are going to become very much like that information that what you're digesting in your mind, okay? It's really important to put in the work. A lot of times, in terms of our societal programming, what we've grown up with, the messages that we've grown up with, how we interact with the field, how we interact with others around us, all of these things are continually shifting our perception or affecting our perception. So we have to understand that we need to have a roadmap to the type of perception we want to create. We have to have an ideology or a set of blueprints for where we are going and how we want to see ourselves in the world. And when we do this, when we create this goal in terms of the human that we want to be, then we put in place a plan to get there. And I would suggest, and again, this is just from my own kind of calibration, that it would be a human being that would be very stable, very organized, very loving, very compassionate, very calm and peaceful, have a blissful nature about them, fearless but kind, not somebody that would be taking advantage of others, somebody that was always there to be a light, to lift others up, somebody that wasn't frantic or felt rushed in any way, an individual that was joyful, fun, funny, again, had good interpersonal relationships, was a creator, was very talented in the output of what they were creating. But in and of that sense, the talent and beauty and creative energy would be a beacon of light for others. And also, in and of that, a teaching mechanism to help elevate others, a gentleness, a protectiveness, those are the kind of things that you want to think about in constructing the optimal version of your own human eminence, or what you emanate, okay? Of course, there's the other side of the spectrum. You could be highly manipulative, you could lie, you could twist things, you could attack others, you could take others down, you could be very Machiavellian in the sense that there's a destructive energy inside, there's sort of a hatred, there's an attack or a greed, a desire to self, a desire to hold all things, to hold power above others, to have a certain reverence to this Machiavellian type power where you are in control of others and you are the puppet master and you play people like pawns, or you play the environment, the world at large as your board game. There's that other side of consciousness, and certainly we see it existing, in the world, that people can think along those lines as well. I mean, there's characters like Hitler, where that was literally his playbook. He studied this type of thinking and manipulation so that he could essentially have what he wanted, right? He could destroy others, to consume, to control, to be above, to hold that power. But in the end, unfortunately, with those type of ideologies, they always self-destruct, because in and of themselves, they are consumptive, okay? They are consuming others. They are they need that controlling power. But from that very edifice of control, they're not bringing forth anything. They're not life-giving, they're life-sucking. So there is a detriment in that style of thinking. So again, we want to be diligent about how we are being in the world. Like, it's important to know what path you're traveling, and it's okay to kind of dabble in different thought forms and different ways of being and seeing the consequences of that. I mean, that's part of learning. But once you have kind of learned those lessons, you do want to really acclimate yourself for the direction, or the high road, low road, which path do you take kind of mentality inside of you, in terms of helping you to construct the best version of you. And remember, it's a progression. This is not going to happen overnight. You're not going to be, the king of the castle or the queen of your castle overnight, because again, that's why we come to Earth. We come to Earth to learn. And this is where we really get in touch with energies, how to utilize energies, what our mind is, the power that we actually possess. We're learning those things, and we learn by failures, we learn by our mistakes, we learn by misstep and being misguided, and then coming back full circle and having a full spectrum understanding. And then again, the world is going to break us down, and then we're going to learn a little bit more again, and then we're going to build ourselves up. And that's the process that we see, the cycles that we see all around us. We see it in nature, we see it with forest fires, we see it with natural disasters. Everything as above, so below. Everything is happening in cycles. Everything is rebirth, everything is death, rebirth, death. I mean, and we're going to die 100,000 deaths in this lifetime through the mechanism of our own learning, and then we rebuild. We get to re-assimilate the parts of ourselves into hopefully a more authentic version of where we want to be and how we want to show up. But there's never going to be an end point to the learning, and becoming comfortable with change and transition is a powerful part of the creation energy, because when we can understand that change and transformation and the flow state of that continual eternal learning, when we can understand and perceive that that is actually the everythingness of being, we let go, we fall into this beautiful symphony of eternal impermanence. But understanding that there is this silver thread of continuity. There's this silver thread of that omnipresent existence that will always be us, that will always be love, that will always be light, that's ever expanding, that's ever growing and changing and reconfiguring. And that is the beauty of it, the beauty of the journey. So hopefully when you can start to really understand this principle, you will let go of fear. Because again, fear it's always the fear of nothingness. It's always the fear that what we are can be destroyed, or what we are is going to cease to exist, or that we're going to lose grip with it, or somehow we're going to self-destruct, or that's even possible. So really that coming home aspect is learning that we are indestructible, that the core of what we are, the core of beingness and creation and love is indestructible. It cannot be destroyed, and it is just ever pervasive and always there. And this is that peace that resides within each being. It's just been forgotten when we come to Earth. We forget these things. So again, a little bit to digest this morning. I'm going to make a couple other videos as well. My only goal in doing this is to try to help the collective consciousness, help humans acclimate into a higher vibrational frequency, to really understand that concept of what building a new Earth is about. I know this concept is a little bit cuckoo to some, so actually that's what I'm going to talk about in my next video, is what is meant by the new Earth, or the age of Aquarius, or the dawning of a new era, the end of a cycle. I'm going to explain that because I think that will help the logical mind, and then also those that are interested in esoteric teachings and, looking at different biblical prophecies and all of this, understand kind of the bridging together of all of these concepts in terms of the divergence of this time that we're in, and how we can see it both from a historical perspective and a modern perspective, integrating the science, integrating the religion, integrating the ideology, but seeing it from a way that is not going to create separation or attack in any